beautiful Sunday, the 1st of November in the year 2020. Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of the assignment program. I'm your host. My name is Andrew MWANSA. Now, before joining the diplomatic service, MUMBA KAPUMPA. KAPUMPA rather practiced law since 1972, working in public service for more than 32 years. KAPUMPA was appointed the permanent secretary, Treasury Council at Zambia's Ministry of Finance from 1982 to about 1992, and then served as the first secretary and chief executive of the Securities and Exchange Commission, that is between 1992 and 2002, a body for developing, regulating and supervising the capital market in Zambia. He thus pioneered the establishment and development of the capital market of Zambia. He was the chairman of World Vision Zambia from 2013 to about 2015, and a corporate governance expert and fellow of the Institute of Directors in Zambia. He was admitted to the rank and dignity of State Counsel at State House in April 2014, and he happens to be my guest on tonight's edition of the assignment. Ambassador, State Counsel, KAPUMPA. Good evening.
Good evening.
And welcome to the assignment.
Thank you very much.
It's an honor to have you.
Yes, when you are reading those things, I felt like I'm dead. And I think that you read when somebody has died. But essentially, I've been around for a while.
You've been around for a while. And
yeah.
An amazing wealth of experience in the corporate, market. Really, I should commend you for that.
And civil service.
And civil service as well. Those joining the conversation on the Muvi TV Plus Bouquet Channel 1 and the Topside Decoder Channel 104, thank you so much for joining us. And later on, you'll be able to come through and give us your contributions and your questions via the number that will be scrolling down your TV screen. That is +264 0978 594682. Those that are joining the conversation from across the continent of Africa, yours is our social media handles. Our Facebook page is Ask Muvi TV. Our YouTube page is also Ask Muvi TV. Get to those two particular pages and give us your comment on the comment section. We're discussing Zambia's state of governance, and we're looking specifically at corporate governance. And like I said earlier, my guest is Ambassador, State Counsel KAPUMPA. Let's begin with the fact that we are coming from independence.
Yes.
56 after independence.
Yes.
And I want your general assessment of what you think about Zambia at 56.
56 means middle-aged. 56, a person is not young, and a person is not that old, just in the middle ages. It means at 56, you should already be married. At 56, you must have children. At 56, well, children, you don't get them, but the Lord gives you. At 56, you may have grandchildren. At 56, it means you are settling down. Zambia, being 56, is supposed to have settled down now, but I'm afraid we haven't settled down. We got political independence from UK in 1964, and I was there. Yeah. I was in Form 3. And I participated in Mufulira at the independence celebrations. And I was there as a youth before independence, in fighting for independence. We were mostly concerned with political independence so that as a country we can begin ruling ourselves. And then economic independence is what, at that time, we assumed that when we get political independence, economic independence will be automatic. But in fact, it wasn't. And the struggles up to today, at the age of 56, in my view, we still haven't got economic independence wrapped up, because we are still dependent upon too many externals for us to make it in our country. We still sell raw materials, and when you produce and deliver raw materials to someone else to turn it into a finished product, then you have a problem there. At 56, we should not be producing only raw materials, copper, cathodes, manganese, gold. No, we should be manufacturing. And that's where the problem is. We are not a manufacturing country. If you go to any shop today and ask for toothpick, and ask for a box of matches, and ask for cornflakes, you will find them in the shops, plenty of them. But it will be very difficult to find whether or not those things are actually manufactured in Zambia. So, in short, the answer, yes, we got our independence. We're 56. We are not young anymore, but we haven't got economic independence. No, far from it.
If I could use your very words, Ambassador, we've not settled yet as a country.
No.
What do you mean?
We haven't settled yet because we are still expecting foreigners to run things.
For us.
Zambians tend to still enjoy buying something that is from a foreign country. Perhaps you can't blame them since 3/4 of the things we find in shops are foreign manufactured. I would love to see, and we started this some years back, Zambianization, to put people in various places. And we even began a program of where we actually produce things in this country. You may not, perhaps you are not there then, but there was a time when, because foreign exchange was not that much available, and therefore we didn't bring in soft drinks, Coca-Cola, Fanta, Sprite, because we had problems with foreign exchange. And we began producing masuku drink, mango drink. We began using the fruits, the wild fruits that are available in this country, and we began producing drinks. For some reason, after a couple of years, that disappeared because Coca-Cola, Fanta, and Sprite came back. And we have completely forgotten about the advancement in refining the production of those soft drinks. So Milli Meal is plentiful. We produce Milli Meal. We have, if you go to any shop, you find 10 brands of Milli Meal, all produced in Zambia. No problem. We are producing cassava. We're producing this and that. But in terms of big thing, manufacturing, every item in this studio, your cameras, everything here, including this chair where I'm sitting on, is foreign produced. This is not produced by Zambia. Yes, you can go to any of the townships and you find carpenters. They'll be making beds and things.
I was about to respond to that because I was one that made these chairs in Kaunda Square.
I'm glad you say that because there are quite a few chairs. There are a lot of carpenters and a lot of welders. The gates now are being, if you look at almost every gate in this town, in Lusaka and around the country, it's produced in Zambia. Yeah. I concede that. But if you went today to a shop that sells furniture, the chances are that furniture there is not made in Zambia. It could be made in Zambia, but it's not made in Zambia. If you went and you wanted to buy a car, any car shop, you won't find a car that is made in Zambia. We had begun assembling Fiat cars in Livingston Motor Assemblers, some years back. And the idea was that after we begin assembling, eventually we'll begin manufacturing them. But that's history now. I don't think there's a single car which is manufactured in this country. So what I'm saying, in other words, is that at the age of 56, we should be a little bit ashamed of ourselves that we are not producing everything that we need.
we're still dependent upon
And
South
precisely,
Africa.
my next question, Ambassador, is what could you potentially point to as major reason why we've not realized, this potential that we have? You did give examples that, look, 20 years down the line, 30 years down the line, I think we did one or two things that you mentioned.
Yes.
Why have we left, the dream of being economically free?
Well, I think essentially, as a country, as a people, we seem to take pride in announcing to friends that what I have, I got it from outside. We haven't got that pride yet sorted out, where we should be proud that in fact this is made in Zambia. Yes, there was even a time when, as a country, proudly Zambian was being sung everywhere. Proudly made in Zambia was being portrayed everywhere. But somewhere along the line, we seem to have lost the push. And I'm saying at the age of 56, we need to have that push. Yeah.
But would you say, that our political leaders have done their part in terms of having the will, for example, to make this country a highly industrialized country? Would you say, well, our different leaders that have come, I think besides the counters, do you think the leaders that followed have have been making a push to ensure that we become industrialized as a country?
I think the leadership since Dr. Kaunda left in 1991 or thereabouts, yes, one can say they have done their part in pushing programs of development. Right now, we have roads everywhere being made and so on, and it's fantastic. And I sincerely hope that it's not just in Lusaka, but it will go everywhere. Even in Lusaka, we go to the various areas where people are moving in now. But manufacturing as manufacturing is still behind. As a country, we are not manufacturing as we ought to. The captains of industry, whether Zambian or foreigner, are still not manufacturing. They would rather, and this came about, I think, when the Second Republic, the Third Republic came into being with President Chiluba and so on. We seem to have abandoned the need to produce everything locally. So we were buying, and some things were being given to Zambia, but we were buying from outside to bring in, and lots of things. So for me, my quarrel is that as a country, Zambia ought to be manufacturing. We start from small things and we build up. Because without manufacturing, we can never be an industrialized country. Everything you can think of, we must be manufacturing. And when the assembling of Fiat cars in Livingston started, the idea was that you assemble everything, it's manufactured somewhere else. But after a while, you stop assembling this particular part because we are manufacturing it. After a while, you stop assembling that part because we are manufacturing it. Perhaps in 10 years, the entire vehicle would be made here. You won't manufacture. I mean, you won't assemble. You'll be manufacturing in this country. So the message from me is that at the age of 56, we ought to manufacture. We are not a manufacturing country. We spend so much money
to bring in imported things. That's what we are selling.
Yeah. You earlier spoke about the fact that, indeed, as a country, we are so consumed with acquiring political independence.
Yes.
We forgot about one
No,
critical...
no, we didn't forget.
Yeah, we thought it would come automatically with
We
political
assumed that, yes, after we get political independence, then everything else will just fall
right
into place.
Mm.
But not.
Yes.
It hasn't been like that.
Yeah, but maybe I could ask the question precisely from what you've said. What would you say is the status of our political independence as of today?
As of today, no problem. The fact that we're having elections every 5 years without bloodshed. Okay, a few skirmishes here and there take place. But our constitution says we must have elections every 5 years. And we have been following that religiously. So from a political point of view, despite the quarrels, despite the arguments that go on in parliament, at the rallies, that's not an issue. The issue is that we are having elections every 5 years. We're having by-elections, and some lose, some win. So from a political point of view, we have reached that level of 56. We are mature politically. Economically, we are not mature.
We're not mature, economically. Let's get to one critical issue as well, Ambassador. The fact that we've enjoyed, the status of being a Christian nation for a while now. I know for a fact that you have a Christian background. I want to ask the status of our Christian nation. What is your general assessment in regards to this?
Perhaps it's a question of understanding what it means, Christian nation. President Chiluba, a good friend of mine, a personal friend of mine, he was responsible for the declaration, and it's found in the Constitution, our Constitution. So it's very important. But being a Christian is individual. It's personal. You have to confess of your sins and believe in the Lord Jesus Christ for you to become a Christian. It's interesting you're asking me this question because I was preaching this morning on Zoom at my assembly. So to be a Christian, it's something personal. It's something individualistic. So when the declaration was made that Zambia is a Christian nation, it was a cover under which we as Zambians ought to begin behaving as Christians. But if you haven't become a Christian, if you have not become a born-again Christian, irrespective of what the political structure, what the Constitution says, you will never be a Christian. So the declaration of Zambia as a Christian nation must be understood that that's a camouflage, that's an umbrella which allows Zambians to behave in a particular manner. We should behave like we are Christians. But for you as an individual to be a Christian, you can't say I'm a Christian because there's a declaration that Zambia is a Christian. No. The declaration is good, but it only allows us as individuals to behave in a particular way. We are not fighting. It's like in the olden days, humanism. Don't be a humanist. A humanist works hard. A humanist doesn't insult his friends. A humanist, that was the philosophy of a humanist. But that didn't make you a humanist. You followed the humanist philosophy. So the Christian philosophy, I think, in fact, the Constitution somewhere says we are a Christian nation, but we do allow other religions. Now, if you go to a Muslim country, you can't say Saudi Arabia is a Muslim country, but we do allow other religions. No. it's a Muslim country, end of story. There's no allowance of anybody else.
So for you, you'd have preferred that we shouldn't allow any other...
No. I'm saying that declaration has not made individual Zambians as Christians. It's a good umbrella under which we all fall, but to become a Christian, it's personal, it's individual. You yourself must say, I am a sinner because I'm a descendant of Adam, and I'm placing my faith in the Lord Jesus Christ because he came to die at Calvary for my sins. Unless you make that move, whether or not the country is a Christian nation, you as an individual will never be a Christian.
But would you confidently say, Ambassador, that we've lived up to what we declared, years ago as a country? We declared Zambia as a Christian nation.
Yes.
Would you confidently say we're living up to what we...
No, I cannot confidently say that because I'm saying being a Zambian has nothing to do with the political country. Being a Zambian has nothing to do with the declaration. Being a Christian rather. Being a Christian has nothing to do with the declaration. Being a Christian goes beyond the declaration. Being a Christian is personal. I'm hoping and wishing and praying that all Zambians can become Christians, but not by political declaration, but by individual commitment to Christianity.
But to what extent has the political declaration helped us?
Well, the political declaration is very helpful. The political declaration is very helpful in the sense that it's allowing people to spend time praying, to spend time doing what they ought to do to become Christians. But the political declaration does allow other religions to survive. Muslims, Buddhism, and so on and so forth. Now, Christianity is a very jealous thing.
And maybe if I can add a wider question to that, Ambassador, do you think this is healthy? If we're looking at a point where we want all of us maybe to become Christians.
Yes.
Do you think this is healthy as a country where we leave it open like that? Yes, we're a Christian nation, but we've left it open. Look, there's freedom of conscience.
You see, I am a Christian. I'm a believer myself. And it's my hope that you are a believer, that the cameraman is a believer, that my neighbor is a believer, that the secretary who works at my office is a believer. That's what all of us should be praying for, that each person in this country, 19 million or thereabouts, we all should become believers. It means that we shouldn't have Muslims, we shouldn't have Buddhists, we shouldn't have atheists. People don't believe in the existence of any supernatural being. So the preaching of the gospel by the believers, by Christians, is meant to change every single person in this country to become a believer. Not just in this country, in the whole world. That is the aim. But it's an aim which does not depend on me. It's an aim which does not depend on the declaration of Zambia as a Christian nation. But the declaration provides some better room, because hopefully as they go to pray, as they go to gatherings, the Holy Spirit himself will be hearing their voices, and he will help the people to become believers, to become Christians. So the declaration is good, but does not make you a believer. It does not make you a Christian.
Allow me to ask you a very uncomfortable question. If you're in the shoes of Dr. Chiluba, would you have just ended declaring Zambia and probably just putting it in the preamble as a Christian nation, as opposed to, you know, getting it to the actual constitution where it becomes, you know, legally binding.
When you say preamble, which preamble? The constitution, the preamble to constitution?
Yes, Zambia should be a Christian nation, and some claim that, look, that does not in any way, you know, have enough legal, you know.
Yeah. First of all, I'm sure you do know that there's no country in the world which has been declared a Christian nation. Even Israel. Israel is in the Bible. So Israel could be a country that would claim to be a Christian nation. But as you know, the Jews rejected the Lord Jesus Christ as a Messiah. So Israel is not a Christian nation because they are not Christians in Israel. They are Jews. Yeah. The Christian is one which was formed at Pentecost when the Holy Spirit came, and the church was born then, which is what we have now. The church has people all over the place. So, declaration of a Christian nation by Zambia, by Dr. Chiluba, very well intentioned, and I have no quarrels with that. But all I'm saying is that as we accept the declaration of Zambia as a Christian nation, we should also go deeper and read the Bible to understand how one can become a Christian and appreciate and know that you can never be a Christian by declaration. No. You can only be a Christian through your own faith, your own conviction, placing of your faith on the Lord Jesus Christ. That is the only way. Christianity doesn't want any other religion. Christianity doesn't say, okay, I can sit here and the Muslim sits there and the Buddhist sits there and we are all praying to God. No, no. The God of a Christian is an extremely jealous God. He doesn't allow any other God. He's the only God. There is no other God to share his place in your heart. That is a Christian. That's a God of a Christian.
Do you think our clergymen today are doing enough?
No. I don't want to spend too much time talking about. I'm not a clergyman.
Do you think our clergymen are doing enough to uphold?
Even the term clergyman, it's something that may take another 3 hours trying to describe who is a clergyman. That word doesn't appear in the Bible.
Perhaps I should say, do you think our men of God, are doing enough?
That's even worse. Well, the Bible has terms, man of God, and so on. And the men of God are the ones who spoke as prophets on behalf of God to the people. And sometimes they took messages back to God on behalf of the people. Some are fantastic. Some are doing extra hard to preach the gospel, to change the people. Some are working very hard. Some are doing very well. But unfortunately, there are some who are not that genuine. The ones who give themselves all kinds of fancy titles, and they indicate that they can do miracles and so on. Those, it's a little bit questionable.
Now, you've complained, Ambassador, that we've not paid too much attention to observance of corporate governance. I want to ask why you are, driving this particular argument.
Yeah. Corporate governance is an extremely essential tool to be used by the corporates and non-corporates. You see, corporate governance, the word corporate means company. But corporate governance is beyond corporates. Corporate governance is a system by which all organizations have to be controlled by a governing body. In companies, we call it director of board of directors. But corporate governance
doesn't even want to use that term, board of directors, because it's not every organization which has a board of directors. But or every organization should have at the top a group of individuals who indicate policies, who develop policies. In terms of government, as a political entity, ministers will be like your board of directors. The permanent secretary is the CEO of every ministry. The CEO, the permanent secretary, they are in charge to implement what comes from the top. But as a country, as Zambia, we are trying very hard to inculcate the principles of corporate governance. But I'm afraid the people in positions of authority, i.e. the ministers, are not fully and completely and totally immersed in the principles of corporate governance. And what you almost quoted me, sometime last year, the Institute of Directors, which is the body that we founded in the year 2000 to teach corporate governance, had a seminar at one of the hotels in Lusaka. And I made an offer, which, by the way, still stands. And the offer was that I'm prepared to conduct corporate governance teaching to the ministers, the political ministers, for free. Meaning that they communicate with IOD, the Institute of Directors. They would get experts, and we do have Zambian experts, people who have really understood corporate governance, and that we do seminars, workshops to train our ministers, to train the permanent secretaries, to train all the people who are running various institutions in the country in corporate governance, so that they get equipped with the knowledge and understanding and the principles of corporate governance. That way, our parastatals, state-owned enterprises, will be run much more efficiently than it is at the moment.
Do you think the fact that those ethical backdrops are missing in some of our, some of our ministers, do you think that has, affected the quality of execution of their duties?
Ethics is a very, and I'm glad you have brought up that. Ethics is a very important part of corporate governance. What is ethics? Ethics is a set of principles which are not law. You see, the law says if you do this, if you don't do this, you'll be arrested. You have committed an offense. Ethics is for you to determine what is good and what is wrong, even if it's not law. But it's something that is inside you. It tells you, this is wrong. I can't do this. This is wrong. I should take a route to go this way because this is right. Part of ethics is what we want among our leaders. In politics, in the corporate world, the people who are running institutions that are producing goods, that are producing services, should have ethics as part of their structure. So ethical leadership is very key in corporate governance. And when we teach corporate governance, we hope and pray that all the leaders of the parastatals, state-owned enterprises, all the leaders of private companies, all the leaders in political structures should have ethical leadership instilled in them. This way they'll be able to run the institutions properly.
Do you think the lack of ethical bedrocks has affected the quality of delivery in these parastatal organizations?
Absolutely. I will have, fortunately for us, I must quickly say it here, that many parastatal state-owned enterprises are now equipped with a good number of those leaders, those captains of business who have been equipped with corporate governance principles. There are many, many of them. Seminars are being held, workshops are being held, both in this country and outside Zambia and so on. And almost every day there is a workshop somewhere within Zambia where the various institutions, various state-owned enterprises, various private companies are being taught. So to that extent, I'm very happy that things are moving. We haven't reached a stage where, for instance, it is my hope that one day no single person will be appointed as a board member, whether for a parastatal, whether for the state-owned enterprise or a private company, if that person has not been taught corporate governance, if that person doesn't have a certificate that shows that that person has attended a training organized by the Institute of Directors, a training organized by the various consultancies dotted around Zambia which teach corporate governance. It is my hope that sooner than later that will be the case. If somebody appoints you to be a board member, before you start work, they must ask you, have you attended a seminar? Have you attended a workshop? Where is the certificate? If you haven't, then they will send you to EIOD so that you get trained.
Get trained.
Yeah.
Maybe just to get to help, the many viewers that might not be very well knowledgeable in the issues of corporate governance. Maybe give us one example of a trending and comfortability that you've seen in these our professionals. It could be ministers that is unethical, that lacks, the bedrock of corporate governance.
The first thing that I should say, and it's not particularly a friendly comment, but I will still say it.
Yeah.
Where someone is appointed as a minister, and the first thing they ask the PS, what are the companies that are under our charge? What are the state-owned enterprises? And then he or she fires the boards. They fire the board not because the board has done anything wrong, but because this new minister wants to appoint a totally new board. That's not correct. That's not correct at all. What I would advise is, when you come to a new position as a minister and they tell you these are the institutions that fall under our ministry, meet the board. Find out from the boards when were they appointed, because some of them could have been appointed 6 months earlier and you remove them. That's the first mistake. The second mistake is that you remove them and you wait for a year. So you have institutions which have no boards. That's against corporate governance principles. So, in other words, what I'm saying is that, and when I offered that we should train the ministers, that is one of the reasons, that if they themselves, if the ones who are responsible for appointing boards of directors are themselves trained in corporate governance, then they will come in and they won't be quick to fire, to remove. They will take their time and they will hear and they will find out that, in fact, this board was appointed only a few months back. This board, their term is expiring in 3 months. So why remove them now when they're going to go anyway in 3 months?
3 months, yeah.
So let them finish, and then you appoint a new board. So that is one of the most important fundamentals that, in fact, those who appoint boards should know about. And our ministers are the ones who appoint boards to the various parastatals or state-owned enterprises. So it's important for them to know before they fire them. And if they have to remove them, and I'm not saying they shouldn't remove them, or no, they have got, if the law says they are responsible for removing them, please let them go ahead and remove them. But I'm saying you must check the law before you announce their removal. The law says such an organization must have a board. So don't remove the board and then wait for a year. So management can't make decisions because they're waiting for the board, and there's no board. So if you remove one board, another board must come in immediately, so that there is no time lost by the parastatal in making, in taking the decisions to the board. The second thing which I wanted to mention is that, and this is being picked up very slowly by various organizations, this is evaluation of the board. That's a very important element in corporate governance. In other words, the board of directors has been functioning for a year or two. There must be an evaluation. There must be an assessment. There must be an assessment where that board will, first of all, self-assess themselves, that this is what I do to prepare when I'm coming to attend a board meeting. I read up. There must be an assessment, self-assessment. Then there must be, the board must assess the board. The board must assess the board itself to say, this was our mandate, and we have done only this far. So there are still loopholes, there are still weaknesses where we're supposed to have done things and so on and so forth. They should assess the CEO. Is he or she performing as expected? What sort of style of leadership? Is there a succession plan? What is a succession plan? A succession plan is when, if somebody drops dead, somebody should take over. If somebody goes on leave, somebody should be available to take over, and so on and so forth. So all those things are very important under the evaluation of the board. Every board must be evaluated at least every 2 years. If it's possible to do it annually, well and good. But at least 2 years, every board must be assessed. That is very, very important. The assessment is not meant to kick them out. No. The assessment is meant to improve their performance. I'll give you a quick example here.
And the assessment should be made by the board itself.
The board itself, but using an experienced consultant. Because sometimes if you need somebody external, somebody experienced, who will be able to help run the show of self-assessment. There are some questions which are prepared in advance, and they will answer. Now somebody has to put those questions and answers and draw conclusions from them. Perhaps one of the conclusions will be that among the board members who are not accountants, or who have they haven't been exposed to accountancy, whenever the board meets and they're discussing accounting matters, they're discussing, for instance, the audited accounts, they are lost, they are at sea. Perhaps there are some documents that come to the board of a legal nature, and board members who are not lawyers, or board members who have not been exposed to the legal field, may just pass it. They don't want to embarrass themselves by saying, I don't understand. But when you are doing an assessment, they'll be able to indicate which areas they are weak. And the company secretary, who is very important as well, the company secretary will arrange perhaps for 1 day's training for non-accounting board members, another 1 day training for non-lawyer board members. I said the company secretary is very important because, in fact, this has been included in the Companies Act. The Companies Act has been amended, was amended a couple of years back, and it included corporate governance in the Companies Act. without saying something that I would regret, but let me just say that yes, corporate governance has been put in the Companies Act, but not to the satisfaction of the Institute of Directors. It was put there, a lot of things remained. And so all the corporate governance practitioners, including me, would want a lot more put in the Companies Act. But at least, thank you very much, Parliament, they included the position of Company Secretary. Very, very important, because the Company Secretary, I call him or her the gatekeeper of corporate governance. That is the person who must know everything about corporate governance in any institution, in any organization. It's a Company Secretary. Yeah.
What is your ideal composition of a board, according to you? What is the ideal composition of a board?
It's very difficult to say the ideal, because it depends upon the size of the organization itself.
For example, I was speaking about parastatal.
Yes, parastatals themselves. If it's a large organization, you need a number of board members which will be which would sufficiently run the various committees. So I'll put a number like 9 for a large organization, perhaps 9 board members, 7 board members. If you get too large a number of board members, probably they will just be sleeping. You need a number that they work. So 7, 9, maximum 11. But if the organization is small, I would not go beyond 3, 5 maximum. Besides the board, you have to have certain committees of the board. Audit committee, you must have an audit committee. You must have a risk committee. You must have perhaps a nominations committee.
So those are presided by which professions?
No. Within the board, among the board members, 2 or 3 or 4 of the board members go to form a board committee. So that it's the board committee which handles matters pertaining to that committee's name. If it's risk, for instance, a risk committee will be dealing with all the risk matters that have to be determined by the organization. If the committee is audit committee, it's the audit committee which will be looking at the auditing of the organization. It will be looking at once an auditor, an external auditor, has done auditing, they will come to the audit committee. So you need those committees which are headed by a board member to be formed, and whereas the board itself, when the board meets, they'll probably meet for 3-4 hours and they finish. But the committees which are smaller, they will meet a bit longer so that they fully explore the issues that they are supposed to be dealing with by the board, because they are a board committee. So therefore, by them meeting, they are meeting as a committee of the board on behalf of the board. Right. And they'll meet a bit longer. Perhaps they'll meet 3-4 hours. They'll probably meet even the following day, and so on and so forth. So a board has to have committees, because those are the committees which will be meeting and looking at issues which eventually will come to the board.
The board itself.
But because they have been analyzed and discussed in the committee, when it eventually comes to the board, it will be quicker. The board shouldn't go beyond 5 hours maximum in a meeting.
But I was asking in terms of the board itself.
Yes.
What is the importance of having professionals? For example, you know that maybe during auditing you need people that have got
Yeah.
the understanding of accounting and
Yeah.
all those things.
Yeah.
And I think one of the issues that leads to ineffectiveness is lack of professionals in those particular bodies.
Absolutely.
And from someone like you who's done this for a very long time,
Yes.
what is the importance of placing professionals in each of those important systems?
Absolutely critical that boards which are created, whether for private companies or public companies, state-owned enterprises, parastatals, and so on, that the individuals who are there are individuals who are qualified. They are professionals themselves. There are some parastatals which there's a law which created them, if they are created by law, and to say the board will be composed of a permanent secretary in this ministry and so on, so on, so on, so on. They will list out the names, and if they have said permanent secretary, it is better if the permanent secretary actually sits there, as opposed to in the olden days, they will give a file on the day of the meeting to somebody very junior who just goes there and they just sit. They don't say anything because they've just got the file. A permanent secretary is the CEO of a ministry. So it means when they come there as permanent secretary, Minister of Finance, when they will say something in the meeting, it's something that is solid. It's government policy. So it's very, very important. So professionals are very key. That means that if it's organizations which don't depend on government people, when you are setting up your own company, for instance, and you want to bring in people to be on your board, you must make sure that you are actually identifying not just your friends, not just your relatives, but you are identifying professionals. And there are people there. You can go to the Institute of Directors and say, Mr. Director, who are the members of the Institute of IOD who are qualified? I'm forming a company, a mining company, or I'm forming a company, an airline company. Which people can you recommend? And the director will be able to give you a list which will show short profiles of individuals, and you pick from that. And like I said some time back, I'm praying and hoping that one day no company in this country, no organization in this country will form a board without going to the IOD. In fact, Australia, New Zealand, and a few other countries are coming up with that law which says you cannot form a company, you cannot set up an organization without going to the Institute of Directors to be advised as to which individuals you can bring to be on your board, professionals.
And I asked that question very, very careful because I think we've seen on news civil society organizations and political parties from the opposition getting to complain that some of these parastatal companies are headed by non-professionals. Yeah. And that's the reason why I brought that question to you. But also maybe in making us understand what is the danger of having someone that is not qualified to run,
It's a very huge danger because you can ask the question, what's the danger of you riding in a car driven by somebody who doesn't know how to drive? Or he will drive into the ditch. It's the same thing. A parastat or a state-owned enterprise, an organization, a private company headed by someone who is not qualified is like having a non-qualified driver driving the vehicle in which you are. You can't allow yourself because it's too dangerous. They are going to the ditch. The same thing.
Do you think that some of some parastatal entities that are running, like they're headed by a driver that is not qualified?
No, I wouldn't say unless I had the chance to look at all the drivers who are in charge. But from what one reads every other day, I think most, if not all, parastatals are headed by very qualified and experienced CEOs.
at least the CEOs that I've met in parastatals, at seminars, workshops, not just in Zambia. I'm in South Africa, I'm doing a training on corporate governance, and among the people who have come there are Zambians, very very qualified individuals. I've no quarrels with that. Boards of directors, some of the people who come there are properly qualified, properly experienced, and so on. My quarrel is simply that when you remove a board, you must appoint another board very quickly.
Lastly, you know, Ambassador, you know, I do know for a fact that you're an architect of Zambia's local capital. Do you think our country has become of age?
56 we are. We started the stock market in the year 2000. 1993. And it was called then Lusaka Stock Exchange, which is now Lusaka Securities Exchange. Opened its doors in February 1994. Our dream at that time was that all the state-owned enterprises would come in, the privatization program will come in through the exchange. But as of today, there are still a very small number. There are 23 companies on Luse. That's too small. That's too small. By today, from 1993 to today, more than 20 years later, we should have had more companies on the Luse.
Well, what would you say has led to this, though?
Perhaps business activity hasn't been that strong. But the market is working. I'm a shareholder myself in one or two companies. It's working. Dividends are being declared. Perhaps I'm too critical. Perhaps I'm overcritical. But still, 22 companies on our Luse is too small.
It's too small.
We need a few more. We need a few more. We needed all the parastatals to have come to the market. That was the idea. Yeah, 22 is too small. We need more.
I'd like to give you, a minute to just give your concluding remarks, Ambassador, as we get to wrap up the program.
Yeah, I touched on it before. Christianity. I think Zambians should be happy that Zambia was declared a Christian nation, but individual Zambians should not feel comfortable that we have the umbrella of a Christian nation, so we are all right. No, you won't go to heaven unless you as an individual get saved. So salvation is very critical. That's one. Two, corporate governance is absolutely essential. Support to the Institute of Directors from government must be seen. We need corporate governance taught in all institutions of the country. We need our ministers to be trained in corporate governance. Absolutely essential.
I forgot to ask you, the response that you got from government when you made the call to ensure that this should be taken very seriously.
No, perhaps bring in a government officer and ask them the question.
Ambassador, thank you so much for having made time to appear on the assignment.
Yes, thank you very much. This was great. I enjoyed myself. It's a very long time ago since I appeared on any TV channel. Yeah. So I'm glad
we are honored to host you,
here.
Ambassador.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
I was joined in by Ambassador MUMBA KAPUMPA, State Council. We're discussing corporate governance, Zambia's corporate governance. I've been your host. My name is MWANSA. Thank you so much to my producer and director, Muvi Tv. For now, good night, and see you next week, Sunday.